like a slow motion video.
Wow.
Right.
So you're actually producing a movie.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
but then it just, you know, like what is it called?
It's so fun while it's going on. How can you go
Are you
down
there,
the
Rappers?
road?
Is that you? And Julian's just now joining us. So Rappers, I'm going to leave the meeting and turn it over to you. Is that good? I'm not hearing you though. Hello, Julian, how are you doing? Until I hear people's voices, I'm not going to be happy. There's a voice. Is that you, Julian? Did I hear you?
Yeah, it's me.
Okay,
Hello,
good.
Stephen.
Hello, how are you doing? Let's see.
Good, good. I'm not able to show camera because my laptop just got dead. The
Well, good.
battery.
I'm glad you joined the call. So did you just dial in or did you come in on with a phone app?
I come in with a computer that doesn't have a camera.
That doesn't have a camera. Okay, very cool. Rappers, I'd love to hear your voice. And when I know you're fully operational, I'm going to turn the call over to you. I just landed, haven't even taken off my coat. I'm going to be right back. I guess I'm still here. You can still hear me, right?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. Thank you for responding.
Stephen, also I was going to ask you for the Slack group. I haven't received the invite.
You haven't received the invite? When we get on the call later, like Catalina is the one who can do that.
Oh, great. Okay.
And I wish I were able to participate fully. I might be able to come back in at the end of the call, but
Okay.
let's see. Okay, he's going to come in 2 minutes. If Rappers would give me a verbal cue that he's in here, but I can't see his microphone on and his camera's not turned on. Hello. Oh, we're going to be friends. Yeah, but see all these new bags.
Yeah, she wants this.
Just gonna check out the new bags, see if there's any mice, see if I brought any mice. There are cat smells on this.
It's
Not my
got what in
cat.
there?
Huh?
It's got what in there?
Well, there might be mice. I might have brought some mice from
Oh,
Utah.
good, how nice.
And
That would be
Philippine wants,
incredible.
yeah, she wants to eat
Completely
them.
honest with stuff.
Yeah, we killed them all.
Well, they kind of killed them. Well.
Gosh, I can't believe that we're the only ones here, Julian.
It's not like they jumped off.
Do you,
I
do you,
understand.
how do you say your name, Julian? Do you like Julianne? Do you like Julian? How do you like to say your name?
No, it's okay. Julian, it's okay for
Just
me. Yeah.
Julian's okay,
In
okay.
in Spanish is Julian, but
Yeah.
I don't mind. Like everyone calls me different. Julian, Julie,
Okay.
Juliancho, Julito. There's many
Ah,
different names.
Juliancho. I like Juliancho. You should sign in as Juliancho. I like that. What does Juliancho mean?
Juliancho is like you can add those 3 letters to many names, like
I see.
for example, how can you Camiloncho or Pedronchi.
Cool.
It's like a way to like
Endearment.
Sorry?
Endearment. It's a way of endearment, to show affection, to show
Exactly.
appreciation. Yeah.
Exactly. I didn't know that word. How is that? Endearment?
It's endearment, yeah, endearment. ENDEARMENT, endearment.
Endearment. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly that.
It means
Exactly
to show
that.
affection or camaraderie or affinity or appreciation for. And Rappers is joining in again with a different connection. Let's hope
Okay.
he's in here twice. Let's
Okay,
all right, you're there, Rappers, is that right?
I'm
So
here
should I-
indeed.
Yeah, should I should put your should I kick your other login out? Because it doesn't have audio.
What do you mean?
You're logged in twice.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's okay. One is yes.
okay,
the
I'm just gonna,
ghost.
I'm
Yes.
gonna remove that guy. I'm gonna remove the ghost, okay?
No, remember the ghost, you may remove me. Wait,
No,
Wait a
you're
minute,
still
wait a minute.
there. I've removed ghosts before. You're still there.
okay, good.
We don't have your camera on. I'm the only guy with a camera on here.
I'm starting the video right as we speak. So you're
Okay.
ready then to fly, mate?
No, I just landed. I haven't even taken off my coat. I just barely pulled in. My phone was dead, and so I'm gonna turn it over to you, and hopefully you're ready to fly.
Ah!
Now it's 11
No,
o'clock.
no. Now that you're here, you cannot. No.
Well, I
It's
might be
Manu.
able to come back in 10 minutes. Did Manu show up?
Not yet. Actually, a lot of people are not receiving the links, apparently, Steve.
That's what I understand, and I think it's because my thing is being treated as spam for some reason.
Yeah. And Sam actually sent an email saying she hasn't got the link for the last 2 weeks.
Well, they need to look for my email and yeah.
Because
need to-
Henry knows how to deal with the problem.
here
Because
comes some
Kerry
more.
still, I have some news from Anna to share with everybody. So good news, actually.
Okay, good. From Manu?
No, from Kelly. Good news from
Oh,
Kelly.
wonderful. Oh, here comes Peter, here comes Joe.
Okay.
And
Manu
here
is
comes-
usually late. South Africans are not very good.
we say the same thing about Native American Indians. We say the same thing.
Exactly. Is that part
Yeah.
of the rebellion?
So,
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Joe.
hello.
Oh,
Peter.
there's Anna.
Did you get the original email, Joe, or did you just get the one I sent you with a special invitation?
This evening, I only got the one this evening that I had seen. Yeah, that was it. Let me see if it was in. I never checked it. It wasn't. There was nothing in my spam either.
I'm going to check on what I need to do because I think that because I'm involved with Keep, I think that Keep uses my domain and somehow it's a spam. I've been identified as a spam thing. So I'll get that changed. Cool.
Okay.
And let's see who
Yes,
we've
so
got
Pete-
here.
Look at that, Peter is on his own again. Well,
Yeah, Kat's here at the moment, but she's packing to go away for a 2-week business trip, so she won't be here.
oh, it's a pity. Well, say hi to her.
Yeah, safe travels. Hey, safe
Sounds,
travels.
It's me who's a bachelor for the next 2 weeks, unsupervised.
Exactly. So I,
I'm
lots of
I'm wondering if
partying,
you're gonna
eh?
make it.
So am I, mate. So am I.
Well, hopefully you survive it.
After 4.5 years, I'm habituated to being looked after.
Exactly.
Cool. Anna's here. She's Ace Directors. And if you want to change your,
Yeah.
if you want to change your name, you don't have to, but I like calling you Ace. You remind me of Ace.
Exactly.
We say, hey, Ace. John,
Yeah,
welcome.
Thanks,
Manu,
Steve.
welcome. Look, I just landed you guys in on a trip, and I've been flying for like all day, and so I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave this up to rappers. If I can get situated, because I'm on my phone right now just to start this meeting. If I can get situated, I'll drop back in on my computer in a few minutes. But
Okay.
but you guys are in good hands. Manu's here, Peter's here, Joe's here, Ann's here, John's here. I mean, like you're. So I'm going to assign Raffers as the host, and the meeting is already being recorded. And then we'll go from there.
Manu is always going to support actually Manu will do most of the leading today. So happy that he's here. Hi Manu, ready to rock and roll.
What
mate.
did you say again? I didn't hear you.
Don't pretend you didn't hear me.
No, what did you say? Seriously.
I was saying
Hours.
that the plan is for you to actually lead the call because based on the discussion we had on Wednesday. So I imagine you're ready to rock and roll.
Okay, so Rappers, you see that you're the host, right?
Let me see. I don't know.
I think right now I have you as a co-host, and when I sign off, you are going to be the host. So that means you have the record
Okay.
button on you have the record button, and you have all the power to remove and do everything you need to do to keep the thing going, right?
Exactly.
All right, then I'll
No
do what I
worries.
can to. All right, I'll do what I can to come back in, but right now I've got to take off my jacket and find out and get on the Wi-Fi here. So I'll see you guys soon, I hope. If not, I'll watch the recording. Okay.
Okay.
Right.
All
Great.
right,
Thanks,
bye-bye.
Steve.
Thank you,
Okay,
Steve.
Okay, thank
Take
you.
care.
Steve.
All right, I'm leaving the meeting. Rappers is the host.
Okay. So I make my new co-host actually, just in case. Okay. Now you're co-host, Manu. Okay. I know that Susan is not going to be here today because she's operating. Well, Steve may be back, may not.
Kelly said he would try to drop in for half an hour. He said his limit was probably about half an hour at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, because he's now landing in Maryland and he must be pretty tired as well.
I'm glad he's feeling well enough to
Hmm.
even do that much.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I guess we should get started when other people join in. So, Manu, are you ready to take the lead? Manu, can you hear me? Oh, you're getting ready. Okay, that's okay. Tell me when you're ready and then we'll launch the call.
Hi, Rafaels. Welcome, everybody, to this call. It's nice again to have all of you. Let's start kicking on. John, how do you feel? What do you expect of this call?
I'm feeling very great and grateful. Another beautiful day in paradise in Perth. Been for a walk down by the river. It's just a magnificent day. And grateful to be here with a small but select group. About half our normal size, but that's all right. And just keen to keep learning. As I said to Kelly when I spoke to him during the week, my head doesn't hurt as much recently since he hasn't been involved in the calls. So I thought Kat had abandoned you, Peter.
Don't
Peter,
plant that seed.
How do you feel and what do you plan to take out of today?
I have actually mixed feelings today. On a serious level, I think I'm going to miss Kat very much for the next couple of weeks. But at another level, I've got a lot of things to do and probably will enjoy my solitude. So mixed bag. I I don't know that I have an expectation to get out of today, but I'm looking forward to it because I know I thoroughly enjoy our Sundays. And with a smaller group, we might get a little bit more juicy on the bone. So that'll be good. Joseph, how are you feeling, mate? And what are you looking forward to getting out of today?
I'm feeling pretty good. I misplaced my Bucky notebook, which is kind of disconcerting at the moment, but that's okay. I have another sheet. I'm sure I'll find it here shortly. So it is it's fall here and it's beautiful, so it's not too cool yet. So this is the best time of year, and the leaves are turning, so you can appreciate nature. As always, it's a joy to be here with everyone today. And I really look forward to seeing this group all the time, and looking forward to learning a little bit more about Bucky and Critical Path, something I'm not as familiar with. So let's see, Anne, how are you? What would you like to get out of today?
Thank you. Good morning, good evening. Yes, thank you very much. Very, very excited today because thank you, Joe, for sending the link and also the PDF to the critical path. Also, because of these past few months that we've been we've been meeting, I actually understood the forward. So I'm absolutely thrilled just by that alone. Yeah. So yeah, I'm hoping we get more today to get even more clarity. And I'll pass it on to, CJ's been trying to get in. Pass it on to John. Have you gone?
Yes, I have.
Peter? You have
He's
to.
gone.
Okay.
I've gone.
Yeah, just give me
Julian? Julio, how do I pronounce his name?
Julian.
It's
Julian.
okay,
Julian.
Julian or
Okay.
Julian.
Oh, Julian.
Thank you, Anne.
Julian will work as okay, Julian, yeah? All right. Over to you. How do you feel and what do you expect to get out today?
Well, thank you, Anne. I'm sorry I cannot share with you my camera because my laptop dropped the battery, so I'm connecting from a computer that doesn't have a camera. But how do I feel today? Well, I feel with energized. I feel energized today. I think that's because there's a couple of things that have been happening the past weeks, and today I was really anxious to see what new concepts and what new learnings can we bring into Bucky's theories. And I think education is always something that you can try to figure out how to join along with these new concepts. So yeah, I think that's what I'm expecting to find out today. So Raffers, how do you feel today and what do you expect from the call?
Well, thank you, Julian. I feel great, actually. Happy to be here. Sorry to hear our dear friend Peter is going to be abandoned for a couple of weeks. So he's going to be looking for shipwrecks like he already does. So that's okay. And what I expect today is again, is to keep on learning and discussing what happens to all of us as, you know, part of the crew on spaceship Earth. And the fact that if Becky's message was very relevant in the 1960s, today it's becoming even more relevant because they'll, again, we talk about pollution and the new understanding we have about pollution and what it actually means and happening around us everywhere. So it's concerning, but when I joined this group, I become optimistic again. So what I expect is to keep on learning and sharing and again, explore more our role as individuals, responsible for what happens and also accountable for what happens to our spaceship Earth. So CJ, how about you, mate? How do you feel and what do you expect?
Thank you, Rufus. I'm feeling good today. It's a sunny day. Has been raining for kind of like for weeks in Malaysia, and there's Deepavali celebration. So right around 11 o'clock or 12 a.m., there will be a lot of fireworks. So imagine you're sleeping, but then you're bombarded with a lot of celebration. So I'm feeling good. What I want to take away from this session is the continuation. I missed last week, have to attend the Parent Teachers Day, meeting parents because coming to year end, got to update the students, the parents, and so on. So I wanted to understand more in terms of the evolution. I wonder whether the class 2 has been discussed in more detail, and also regenerative, what that means, right? So that's what I want to understand more today. May I know who haven't gone yet? Oh, all good.
Not
All
me,
right, thanks.
not me.
Manu haven't gone yet. Hey, Manu, how are you feeling today? And what would you want to take away from today?
I'm feeling quite good today. I'm hopeful that we're going to progress on what we said to do, that is to have a datum, an artifact that can be used by us and all to facilitate our designs. We started somewhere, we've been discussing somewhere. What I expect of today is that, in actual fact, we kind of stabilize on those and go further and integrate it into what we started from the universe, macro, micro, etc. in that hierarchy. So that's what I expect of today. I think to start with, we should have Susan's document up. Raphael, can you please share it?
Yes, I'm just getting Susan's text ready. So give me 1 second. Okay, here it is. Let me just share my screen right now. Okay, here we go. Okay, can you see my screen now? Yes.
Yep.
Okay, there it is, Manu.
Okay. Can we have volunteer to read quickly and let understand what it means? I know we've discussed this quite a few times before.
I'm happy to read.
John is volunteering. So.
Okay, I'll start. Class 2 evolutionary trendings are all those events that seem to be resultant upon human initiative taking or political I've missed the edge of the page, changes wrought by the progressive introduction of environment altering artifacts. That's too small now. A little bit larger, please. Too small to read. That'll do. All the class 2 evolutionary events tend to flatter human ego and persuade humanity to deceive itself by taking credit for favourable changes in circumstances while blaming other humans or acts of God for unfavourable changes. It therefore assumes that humanity is running the universe. Wherefore, if its power structure leaders decide that it is valid to cash in all of nature's available riches to further enrich the present rich or to protect them militarily from attacks by their assumed enemies, all at the cost of terminating human presence on planet Earth. That is the power structure leader's divine privilege.
Let's stop there, John.
Yep.
Comment?
So we think we're God and we think that we can destroy the planet if we choose to. Yep. Pretty concerning.
Yeah, I think that this is what Bucky refers to as the great pirates, and the operating manual for Spaceship Earth. and specifically how special, like very narrow thinking in conjunction with greed, like very specialized thinking in conjunction with greed will lead us to exploit the Earth's resources to our own ends and to our own demise.
Completely egocentric.
Yes.
Right, shall I read? Want me to read the next paragraph?
Yes.
All the class 1 evolutionary trending is utterly transcendental to any human vision, planning, manipulation, and corruption. Class 1 evolution accounts for humans' presence on Earth. It accounts for their having always been born naked, helpless for months, and inexperienced, ergo, ignorant, hungry, thirsty, curious, and therefore fated to learn how to survive only through trial and error 1, progressive accumulation of experience. Class 1 evolution accounted for humanity's all unexpected invention of verbal, oral sound communication, and thereby the integration of the experience 1 information of the many, whereby the integrated information of the many increased the capability of humanity at large to cope with the exigencies of life. It is class 1 evolution that led, after progressive integration of the total experience 1 information, to the unpredicted invention of writing or visual communication, by means of which the dead could speak to the living, and within which total written information history human mind from time to time discovered repetitive patterns, which in turn sometimes led to the discovery of generalized scientific principles. Wow.
Okay. Questions? Comments?
Actually, what I find interesting is that, Bucky talks about evolutionary trending and two evolutionary trends. One is class 1 and class 2. And two ways to look at evolution as a species. That is, on one hand, we believe that the power structure leaders decide what to do, what is valid to do. And we know what impact that's had on the biosphere. And on the other hand, when it talks about the other evolutionary trending, is more what actually happened to us as part of nature. And the fact that he talks about the dead, talking to the living or teaching the living for that matter, is a great evolutionary step compared to before, for example, we invented or we discovered how to symbolize vibrations. And that means how we discovered, writing from symbols into, specific symbols to mimic sounds, and then those sounds became the written word. And it's true, actually, when we as a species started to share stories and to tell the young, the elder experiences and learnings, that's how we started actually teaching. And then the dead started talking to the living. But again, in the beginning was somebody talking about what people talked before. But as we got into the next stage, which is, again, the printing press, etc., and now with all these discoveries of, electromagnetic information, and the fact that we can all link to anybody on the surface of the earth by just using a simple mobile phone, and the power of that is just phenomenal. I think Bucky anticipated a lot of that, and how we are able to teach at a huge scale, and we can all learn from each other. So to me, it is to exactly that. But again, we still have class 2 evolutionary trending, extremely powerful, and people designing, for example, certain countries, for example, the International Monetary Fund telling countries what to do in order to achieve growth. And that means more in foreign investing, more mining, more fossil fuel extraction. And who cares about the environment? Let's put it off for another 10 or 20 years. And anyway, it's again analyzing who we really are, what we're really supposed to do, and the fact that we have been led into believing that this power, the structural power, is actually leading or creating change or evolution, which is just very deceitful, in my view. Anyway,
I think
Yeah.
Bucky at one stage said that television was the beginning of the undermining of the authority of parents, because children could see events around the world come into their home, and they learned that their parents were not omniscient, they didn't know everything, and therefore children questioned their parents more and didn't accept what they said. But now, through the development of technology, we've got fake news and false information and people believing what they see or read without knowing the source or questioning it, and abdicating their individuality and responsibility. It's a little scary.
Okay, I would like to put it this way, is that the contrast between class 2 evolutionary trending and class 1 I see is that of class 1 evolutionary trending is comprehensive. Class 2 is not. And to illustrate that, it is class 1 evolution accounts for humans' presence on Earth. It is comprehensive. And yeah,
You said class 1 is comprehensive, right?
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question here, yeah, because it says class 1 evolutionary trending is transcendental to any human planning, manipulation, vision, etc. Right? Doesn't class 2 cause impact class 1? Say for instance, right? Because the way human beings move and the way we do things, there is so much segregation around the world, and yet there is all this coming together as well. I give you an example. Like say, I think during in Iraq, number of decades ago, I remember they had this chemical warfare against the Kurds, you know, and to literally there was genocide there, right? Genocide. And then you have, so that's one. And then generally also, okay, there was this book I was reading, it's a storybook, right? The Chinese, the way they look at the world is like, there are only two races in the world, the Chinese and the rest of the world, okay? So if you think the way, from the viewpoint of the Chinese, so I thought, oh, that's a very interesting way of looking at the world, right? And yet because of technology and the fact that we can travel across the world so quickly, and somewhere further down, there was one part they talked about crossbreeding, right? So because we're able to travel and we are migrating and living all over the world, and people are coming together, so we are apart and yet we are together. So they say that the more we, I think Bucky said, the more we fly or travel around, the more crossbreeding there will be. So doesn't that mean that we are impacting, manipulating? In some ways, manipulating, in some ways it's not. So how do you, I can't make sense of that. It says it's not related, nor can we plan it.
And we're not manipulating anything with effect in regard to class 1 evolution. How will Chinese think that being one race and the other another one bend gravity?
Okay.
You can't change gravity.
What
I mean is that class 1 evolutionary trending is the effect of generalized principles. They are true everywhere. Nothing we can do locally will change that. What we do is we alter our local conditions And that can result into the local condition being discarded or changed in a way that is no more suitable for the conditions, the parameters within which our life is possible, or it is accommodating to that. That's all we can do. So for all the ego flattering that we might have, in actual fact, what we do is adapting. And that's what Bucky calls that our mission as human is local in the service of the integrity of the eternally regenerative universe.
Yeah, actually, and I think I mentioned something very important is the fact that today I don't even have to travel to be everywhere. I can now be in South Africa, I can now be in the US, I can be in Malaysia. If we think about how we are all connected, so and the fact that in this being in this group, we are this is a multicultural, multiracial, and I hope one day colorblind group of people. And if the Chinese can be again so biased about their own role as a species, because they're very isolated, there's very little migration from other parts of the world into China. That's going to change inevitably. As the Chinese dominate more and more of the world, they will become more contaminated by the other races or the other ethnic groups, inevitably. So that will happen, again, based on generalized principle, that will happen anyway. And also, you look at, for example, I remember the fact in the UK, when people voted for Brexit, actually the people that were most in touch with other ethnic groups and cultural groups voted more to remain. Whereas those people that were more isolated or felt more like a separate group from everybody else, they felt that the European Union was a threat. And they were again manipulated, but based on their circumstance and their own position and their own connections with other people. So I think as we come to understand that more and more, and I can see the change happening even in front of my eyes. For example, even people today, they look at starvation and poverty in Africa, and they think, well, it doesn't really matter because they're Black. And that happens. I mean, and it's horrible to know that people are numb to the suffering of people simply because they are very aware that they're different. And because they're different, they're not me, or they're not part of who we are as a species, then we don't care. But as that changes, and it will change inevitably based on generalized principles, then we can see what we do. But again, like we know, we need to do things locally. To solve Africa's problems, we need to go to Africa. And we can do that even from wherever we are. But the problems in Africa have to be solved locally. And that's something, if you look at today's world, that's not even considered. To solve Africa's problems, people say, oh, we need to build walls. We need to send them back to where they came from. I mean, how stupid is that? It still happens and nobody questions it. So, well, it's starting to be questioned now more and more, but still it's not mainstream. But I'm hopeful it will become mainstream. Because again, we know if we don't change what we're doing, if we don't change our understanding, and we don't apply these generalized principles, we are facing oblivion effectively. So again, that's my reflection about Anne's question. A great one, those. Thank you.
Yeah, to me, it's very, very important to understand that in Bucky's and in what we understand here, structure of thought.
Yeah,
they are generalized principles. Those principles are shaping whether we want it or not. We happen to be events in the evolution of things. And because we can think, there are things that we do. And those things that we do, which is of class 2, could be discarded or accommodated to the class one evolving the way it is. In other words, humanity could be discarded depending on either what we do or even something that is not of our doing could discard humanity.
Sorry, Manu, what do you mean by that? Something that is not of our doing? Did you say can discard humanity?
Yes. I mean, how did the dinosaur disappear? It wasn't on the making. It was a cosmic event that happened. And yes, it can happen to us. And there's nothing we do about it. It can happen to us.
Yes.
So we really have to be conscious of that. And that places a limitation on the utility. What are we using the leaves of time that we have to do? Are we really working on the mission? What is the mission of humanity? Bucky says that the why we are here is to information gather, store, transmit and retransmit, winnowing, designing things in support of the integrity of the eternally regenerative universe.
That doesn't mean we have to remain a part of it. We can wipe ourselves out or be wiped out.
No, we could be wiped out.
Or we could wipe ourselves out.
Yes. So if you could be wiped out, or you could wipe yourself out, it leaves you with nothing but now. You've got to do something now. You got to think correctly now, but you learn to think correctly. So the why our Bucky, the mission of the Bucky Corps is education. And we want it to be some kind of teleological education. Okay, so are we set on this class 2 and class 1? Okay, so let's evolve to the words that we had. We had evolution, pollution, sustainability, and regenerative. Are we set on those now, especially on pollution? Where is Anne? Or CJ for that purpose. CJ, are we set on evolution, pollution, sustainability, and regenerative? Or do we need a recall of what we have reached in terms of our precedent discussions?
I'm good with that. Yeah.
Say again?
Me too. CJ said he's good with that. I'm very happy with where we have gone with the definition and the discussions for all those those words. Yes.
Okay.
If I extend just one more, would be existence and extinction. Something just crosses my mind when it comes to evolution. Existence and extinction. So mainly, so what crosses my mind when we talk about evolution or evolutionary trending is the word existence and extinction, because we in one way or another we fight to exist. Whatever we do, we fight to exist, and to the extent going beyond living on Earth. So, and why do we fight? To exist for our generation, the next generation, and so on and so forth. Perhaps it's something that's in our DNA or part of being biological being. So yeah, just adding on this too.
I kind of feel that class one evolution is possibly the only way humanity is going to thrive. But I'm challenged every day when I look at my local world of the level of hubris and corruption of those in class one. And one of the things that challenges me the most is that, and I can only speak for my own local community, most people are content to turn a blind eye to the corruption and hubris of the political class and the corporate elites and the various evils they are perpetrating. And, maybe it's Australia, maybe it's a she'll be right, mate, because we have that kind of attitude. But I don't think we're separate from the political animals. I don't think we're separate from the corporate elites who create the corruption and the hubris. And if as an individual and if as a society we don't call them to account, and I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. We had the New South Wales Premier and her off-sider and quite about half a dozen of the senior bureaucrats all resigned because of corruption. And that corruption is a bottomless pit when you start researching it. And I spoke to one of my friends and said, oh, well, it'll be good when she goes to jail. And it was this look and this energy of, no, they'll never go to jail. They're a class unaccountable. And I think I think one of the biggest causes of our extinction will be our apathy at the hubris and corruption of those who are in class two, as Bucky called it. And I don't know the answer, but at a personal level, I know that, in Australia, every citizen has got the right to go and demand an audience with a member of parliament and express whatever it is we want to express. And I know of no one else other than myself who has actually ever done that. And I've spoken to hundreds of people about it. Everyone's like, nah, I've got a life to live. I'm getting on with it. So I think our biggest danger as a species is apathy. So anyway, that's my two bobs.
Okay, agree. So yeah, apathy will have pollution happening. Something will be happening as a resultant of apathy. And it might result into something. So, but I think that if we agree on that, we can also put it this way. And in the context of what we've discussed before, that there is universe, in the universe, there is macro, micro, and we are in the universe in between those two. Question, comment? We are in the universe in between macro and micro.
I think we're definitely at risk as a planet. It seems to be fairly obvious. And the point that was made about people feeling disempowered, feeling that politicians aren't going to be made to account for their actions, feeling that there's no benefit, no point in contacting politicians and lobbying them or trying to persuade them to do what's in the best interests of the planet. That in itself I see as a big part of the problem. It's a case of motivating individuals to step up and send the message. Technology actually assists with that. If we embrace technology appropriately, of sending the message back to our politicians and those who are making the decisions, we're not happy and we will do something about it. But I think there's a fair room to go before the majority of the population feel that way.
Okay.
I have something to share here because I'm not sure if how many of you are aware of what happened to Malaysia over the past 5 to 7 years. And because we had a prime minister who did everything you can think of under the sun. So there was the accusation of murder to the misappropriation of billions of in US dollars from our country. And there's this whole scandal with that fugitive Jolo. I mean, there is the wife as well, because, oh my God, if you think about the kind of things that go on, because there was also the black magic involved, murder of a model, the scandal, a Vietnamese model, all those things. And so the country got very, very, very annoyed. And in fact, we had enough of the ruling government that's been ruling since 1957. So there was a change in government because everybody came out to cast their votes. And the previous prime minister came back into power. He was the only one that everybody could follow and would listen to, and he took it. And there was a whole change in power to the opposition. Now, this is the first time it's ever happened in this country, and it was very peacefully done. There were no fights, no, and so on. So the problem was we realized that the people who, the opposition, suddenly they're no longer the opposition. And many of them did not have the experience, even though, they had very clear ideas of what they want to do to change the country for the better and so on. And they started working on it, right? But many of them did not have enough experience. They had a lot of experience being the opposition, but no experience in the country. And it was showing up, right? But having said that, the prime minister then, he let the whole country down. He let the whole country down by not fulfilling his promise, which was to pass, after 2 years, to pass the leadership to his ex-vice prime minister. Okay, so anyway, he didn't do that, and the previous ruling government came back in and took it all over again. So we saw the change. People came in, made the vote happen. Everybody was very upbeat as a country, and then 2 years later, it went all the way back. And then you're right, there was no accountability. So the wife of the prime minister, with a few hundred Birkin bags and you name it, it was worth millions, the handbags. The government, the police actually confiscated everything. But now what I heard is it's been returned to her. Okay, so, well, yes, what you talked about, it just happened to our country. And we're back to square one. And people are doing what they can to just siphon money out. This is something that we all know is happening right now. Yeah. So anyway, that's just a bit of sharing. CJ, I don't know if I've made it clear. If you can add anything in, that would be very helpful.
I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah.
What is happening? Yeah.
Yeah, we were just saying, how do you make a movie of this? How? We couldn't even begin to fathom how to tell this story. Yeah.
There's a whole movie, yes. And there's a book on it, The Whale.
Yeah, the $1 billion whale. But that's just a fraction of it, you know.
Anyway, that only serves to illustrate the
Class.
the our doing locally in ways that is incomplete and unaccounted for. So what is important to me here, and I share it, is that thinking, we've got to try to think in the most comprehensive way possible. That is to think in a way that we anticipate some, what would I call it, a cycle. And mostly it has to do with learning about the principles and knowing about the history. Has proven to me to be very useful in designing whatever you want to do. Know about the generalized principles and know about history to draw lessons that you can put together in a way that is in line with the generalized principles. One example of it is when designing whatever to be open and anticipate that there will be what we call pollution,
Right.
and think about what to do with. And in the example that Anne talked about in Malaysia is, yes, this guy came in, Marty came in and stepped in as a transition leader, but who thought about the whole stuff about how power is going to be kind of transmitted, the channels of that transmission of power, and the accounting of it, holding people accountable to, and that's it. So we tend to be carried by our emotions and then stop there, and every time we are caught half naked. And that's what happened. Comment?
Can I ask if history creates pollution?
No.
And, okay, because in a sense that it pollutes, it kind of pollutes the imagination. Not that you don't need to account for it, but it does pollute the imagination as to what you think is possible, right? Now, you have to know it, so I guess, but I just thought about it in terms of how it could maybe pervert how we think.
Rather
But
than
the way you say that, Joe, make me feel like we have to go back and restate the definition of pollution.
I know. I
that we
thought about it
landed
this
on.
week. I know. I
Yeah.
thought about it this week, and I'm going to put them on the chat. This is actually something that I thought about in the sense of, in the sense that what is, like, we're looking as where we are and how we got there,
Mhm.
and that perverts what can be.
No,
So-
what I mean here, Joe, is pollution is always there. It is
Right.
always there. We just don't know what to do. So we have to be aware that it is there. And then what I was saying is that knowing principle, that is knowing cycles, if we learn about them, we know that there's going to be accumulation of something, a byproduct of the doings, of our doings today.
Okay.
And then knowing that, what to do with. If we don't know what to do with it yet, we're just aware that it is there, it is on a back burner, but we should not act as if we didn't know that something is in there. So once we know, we're aware of it, we might not know yet what to do with, and that is its definition, but it is there.
Yeah, and touching on Joseph's question about history, what's critical is to realize that in search of veritas, we need to look into history again, revisit it, and then look at it with different eyes and different perspectives. For example, if you look at the history of the American continent, it's very Eurocentric if you think about it. The name America is called after somebody who used to draw maps of the Americas. It was America Vespucci, so that's an Italian. And the fact that the natives never called this part of the world America. In fact, you look at what happened hundreds of years ago with today's eyes. I think, who were the illegal aliens at that time? Who came in without documentation, permission, or anything? Looking at it with our eyes, but again, if you look at it with nature's eyes, it's just migration. It's just expansion of areas of influence, power, economics, trade, etc. So, and it happened because, again, this biosphere is intended to come together. So it's not good or bad, right or wrong. Here's what happened. But if we can take the opposing view and compare, analyze, and learn from the experience, then we need, I'm certain about this, to rewrite history at some point. And it's happening already. When you look at, for example, the symbols of Christopher Columbus statues being knocked down all over the world, well, in the Americas again, and being replaced by indigenous symbols. And that reflects a change in historic point of view. It's not right or wrong, but I think it's fair. Why not portray the people that were here before? We cannot rewrite history because what Columbus did has already happened, and we cannot change what's already happened. Because you can reinterpret and come with a different position about what happened. Again, statues of slavers being knocked down in the UK is another sign of change. Whereas before, it was okay and fine to have even streets named after slave traders. But now with today's, I have to say, hold on a second, we have this street named after somebody who killed thousands of people. That's unacceptable. So let's give the street a new name, or let's knock down the statue. And some people come up in arms. You're destroying our heritage. See what I mean? But to me, it's taking that standpoint. That standpoint. And Bucky, actually, I learned something from Bucky's. I can understand the point of view of those people defending the statues, and understand the point of view of those taking them down. And then I look at what's in fact evolving, and what's going, what's regression. Are we progressing or are we regressing as a species? But looking always around generalized principles. Remember, if we look at pollution again, pollution is something and it's already there, and it's again particles that we know how to harvest. We know what to do with those particles, and that are, for example, in the atmosphere, or the problems that is creating. But that is a separate issue. But then again, to understand that, we understand how we came to this point. In fact, the other day I was looking at the evolution of cars. The first cars were electric, because again, we have already done the voltaic, what do you call it, batteries, and they worked, and they were a reliable source of energy. But again, when Otto discovered the explosion engine using fossil fuels, then all that changed, because fossil fuels were more efficient. They would take people further away and cheaper. So they were more efficient at that point. But they never stopped to think, what will happen when we pour tons and tons of fossil fuels into the biosphere? That compared to the other accounting, if you look at batteries. Batteries also pollute, actually. But it's a different kind of pollution. So again, the invention of cars and everything else, that's been part of the world we have today, and we need to change it. Looking back, how to make things more efficient, how we do the cosmic accounting that Bucky talks so much about.
Mhm.
So that to me is how to deal with pollution, how to deal with the problems, deal with the issues.
Yeah.
Again, that's my view on that. Thank you.
Yeah, it is important what you're saying there in the context of what we're doing here. You know, like history, depending on who is looking at history, can be either dangerous or really useful. If you are aware and if you are educated or in the general principles, looking back at history allows you to veer properly, adaptatively into something. But you can look at history as ignorant and become really dangerous in repeating and amplifying something that happened and that people didn't learn from, with more little consequences. And that's the whole thing of here. We are only effective as to what we are doing today. Now, the vital now. That's where we're right. Now, is our vital now be done in a way that is constructive or destructive in regard to our own and our environmental survival? And that is what you call the validation of a local in regards to the generalized integrity of the universe. Yes, we have the power to destroy ourselves by our choices. We can alter our local condition. And when I say local, for example, when you come to humans, you're talking about our environment, our biosphere is our local, right? We could alter it to the point where we're no more relevant. It wouldn't mean that the biosphere will no more be existing. It will exist in a form that is more suitable to other species, to other forms of life. That's the whole point, in my opinion. Comment, questions before we continue on this? I think that it was very important that that definition, especially of pollution, we agree on it. Because the first day that we discussed pollution here, everybody was talking from his own experience and being biased towards that. But pollution in itself just exists. It's always there.
Can I just clarify an assumption? I'm assuming that I'm here today and others are here today because we want to expand and add to our knowledge and thinking. We want to develop new ways of looking at things and solving problems, because that's why Bucky said we're here to solve problems. We're here because we are aware of increasing issues around the planet that appear to be putting our future at risk. And then we are looking for ways through supporting each other to use that expanded knowledge and information to influence those whose actions are having an impact on the planet. Is that a fair summary?
Absolutely.
I like that.
I mean, we don't still want to be sitting here at our computers as the oceans rise and we go underwater and not have done anything except expand our knowledge.
Yes.
So, I mean, Anne's analogy is a very good one. In Malaysia, they managed to replace a corrupt regime, but the inexperience of the incoming regime led to the corrupt regime being able to re-establish itself within a few years. So where is what we are doing leading us, and where do we want it to lead us? Just wondering.
Yeah.
That's
Just-
a great question.
Just as an aside, gentlemen, and there's Philemon's maybe trying to join the room because he's just sent me a request for the link. I sent it to him by email. So if you get a thing on your screen, Manu, saying someone's trying to get in, it'd be Philemon.
Okay. It will be Rafes to do that. Rafes?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm ready. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Sorry.
Okay. So
So we need to work
this
on our aim.
said, yes. So we can say that we back evolution, pollution, sustainability, and regenerative, right? Okay. There are some stuff that came in, how to put, kind of putting that into the context of a macro. And then we touched a little bit on those on the call that we have on the weekend. The notion of integrity, agreement, choice. So there were words like universe, macro, integrity, agreement, micro, choice. It just thrown here. What do you, any comment on that?
Agreement. I know that we've discussed that in the past. Is that, and I was trying to go through that this week a little bit, was the idea of, I can only define it in terms of a contract, in the sense that it's an agreed upon, it's something that we're both saying is true. So it's more of a, yeah, I mean, the way I defined it is in terms of a contract, that's all. And I don't know how, I mean, I know that but as soon as you have that, it excludes, I remembered this, just having a brief conversation, it excludes what somebody else, how someone else will define a contract, or how somebody else would define agreement. I'm trying to think of the words here, hang on. All right, I'll have to come back to my thoughts. I don't have my Bucky book, otherwise I would have my notes.
Okay, let me be more specific here. In terms of agreement and choice, which is macro, which is micro?
Agreement is macro, and micro is choice.
Yeah, I do tend to agree to that. Do we?
Yes.
Do we agree to that? That is already something important in terms of
Yes,
our
absolutely.
structure.
Yeah, I agree. Yes. Actually, commenting on what Joseph said about agreements, the first agreement we made as a species worked around language as we came together as a group. And we had to agree, for example, that certain sounds would relate to certain objects, or certain ideas, or certain actions. And effectively, it's all based on agreements. And in fact, just to give you a funny example, in Spanish, we have a Royal Academy looking after the integrity of the language. I mean, which is absolutely stupid if you look at how languages work. In English, there's no authority around what language should be like. The only authority is educated people using language in a certain way, and they become the educated bunch. But not leading the language, but recording and analyzing what's actually going on. And over time, language changes. Agreements change over time. One word that meant one thing, like for example, gay, had a very different meaning 40 years ago than it has now. But again, we as a group, as a society, agreed, yes, let's call this creative word gay to describe homosexuals. And now we don't say homosexual anymore, we call them gay. And gay people accept that word as a fair description of their own sexual identity. So that's again a great example of agreement. In societies where they're more conservative, they probably prefer they were homo, queer, or fag, or whatever word is being used, which is offensive, effectively, and to most gay people. But again, all that shows a level of evolution, a level of change of agreement around language. For example, as a species, we all agree to take care of our children. That's in our DNA. I remember the song by, who was it? I think was Sting that sang "The Russians Love the Children Too," talking about war and what we actually do as a species. We all care about our children. So we want to destroy everything and kill our kids on the way. So again, some of the agreements are not being ignored. I mean, effectively, when you look at what's happening in the world today, like people say it's okay to steal. And if you steal billions of dollars, you can get away with it. But you steal a bank and you rob a couple of $100,000, you go to jail for 4 or 5 years. But again, if you borrow the same amount of money, you have to pay for 20 years. So again, those are the kinds of agreements we have today. So if we come together as a group and say, well, we need to actually work out different kinds of agreements. Even in this group, we have certain agreements about what we do. We come on time, and we keep those agreements and those main interests. And again, none of us has signed a contract, I think. At least I haven't. But I come here happily every week, unless I cannot make it, again, to learn, expand my thinking, and to share, and to know that we can all make a difference working locally, how I deal with my family, how I influence people, what I do on Facebook, what I do on Instagram. All those things have an impact. I mean, whether people listen to me or not, I don't actually care, but I can see the impact happening. I can see different levels of thought coming into the world, into the internet, and the kinds of discussions we're having today. And believe me, Anne, what happened in Malaysia is not different from what's happening in countries like Peru, where you have the level of corruption is phenomenal. 4 presidents imprisoned or prosecuted, and we almost elected another criminal. And now the whole mess still goes on because the criminals don't want to let go. But they're not the only criminals. I mean, they recently arrested the governor of the second main city in Peru, and there's now another group of criminals linked to the president, well, the president's party, that is. So again, we can see this corruption everywhere and growing. In the UK, it's the same. So the problems seem to be different because Malaysia is so far away, and and what's happening maybe slightly different. But you look down on the problems and where they come from, it's all the same. They come from the fact that the powers of be do whatever they want, the superpowers do whatever they want, and a few do whatever they want. And the only purpose is to make more money. Let's get richer, and everybody's expense. and it's okay. So again, when we come together and we get to that level of awareness, then with that comes again greater responsibility as well. So what do? So I'm working with Julian on the project to bring more education, inspired by Anne and what she's doing in wherever you are today, which is educate people in a different way. So you know what I mean? They can actually do what they are supposed to do, rather than follow the lead of the people who have led us into this mess. So to me, this call is about that. And so when I look at the agreements, I look at the widest, huge macro level possible. And here we have a great local example of how we keep and manage agreements. And it works for all of us. And we are working together for the benefit of all, not just a few, or how do I trick Anne into doing something I need, rather than how do I support Anne to do what she wants to do, I guess. As an example.
I would like to suggest that, I inventory about 16 words here in 4 tetras that we've discussed in the past few weeks and which we seem to have landed on. Can I share them with you?
Yes, please.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, we've discussed about 4 words: macro, micro, agreement, choice. We've discussed about evolution, pollution, regenerative, sustainable.
Yes.
We've known about energy, boundary, space, movement. And then we've discussed.
Is it energy, boundary, space, and movement?
Space, movement, yes. And then we've also discussed about circumstances, happenings, events, and arrangement. Arrangement, rearrangement. I will be happy that we have clarity and commonality in terms of understanding those. That
I'm not clear on the difference between circumstance and happenstance. Was it the other word, happenstance?
Circumstance,
happenings, and arrangement.
Yeah, I'm not clear on that one. I might have been away that day.
Okay, we can, I will be happy to that we at least conclude on those. If we can spend say 10 minutes clarifying this, that would be very, very useful. Can we take on that?
Sure.
Okay.
Circumstances, happenings, and arrangements. What was the fourth
Okay.
one? Yeah, okay.
Circumstances, happening, event, and arrangement. Arrangement, rearrangement. Tetra words. Let's start with I think we're clear about macro, micro, agreement, choice, right?
Yep.
Raphael, can you stop sharing your screen?
You want me to share again? Stop sharing.
No,
Okay,
you
stop
can.
sharing.
Yeah.
Okay, done.
All right, excellent. So we agree on that. Now we look at evolution, pollution, regenerative, and sustainable. The difference between regenerative and sustainable, like the main difference was that sustainable had to do with one cycle. Regenerative was multiple cycles. Pollution is something that happened that we don't know yet what to do with. That was Anne. And then we've discussed evolution, all of this. Now, let's look about energy, boundary, space, movement. We've talked about that until time. Is there any question about that there is energy? When you set the boundary, you have space, and there's movement of energy.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, the fourth one is circumstances, happenings, events, arrangement. I guess there have been comments about clarification on those, maybe.
Yes.
Raphael, do you want to take on that?
Yes, absolutely. And actually, Julian put it in the right hierarchical order. Is the one I have, which is again circumstance, events, happenings, and arrangement. And again, going from macro to micro, and what we try to create, which is an arrangement. Well, starting with circumstance, we all have different circumstances. Where we are born, what sort of family we're born into, what sort of weather, what sort of. So all that's a circumstance. Now, if I move from where I am today, which is Colombia, and I go to South Africa, again, I will be surrounded by different circumstances, or what's already there. But I will carry with me my history of circumstance as well, wherever I go. So circumstance to me is what it was already there from when I started when I started this life, and what I carry through in terms of who I become or who I am. So those are circumstances.
So
obviously circumstances we can, yes.
are
Joseph, go ahead.
circumstances then micro? I mean, in a sense.
Yeah, it comes to me at a micro level, yes, to each
Right.
of us. Mhm. But again, we all have a circumstance. Nobody can escape. Well, we can change our circumstances. That is, I was born from uneducated parents. Well, they can give me an education through work and effort, or I can educate myself. So by having an education which I did not have or was not provided, I am creating a different circumstance. See what I mean?
But you cannot, Raphael, you cannot
But you
say
cannot
absolutely.
stop the fact, but I cannot stop the fact that I was born into a world from uneducated parents. See what I
Yeah. I was just going to say that you cannot absolutely say circumstance is micro.
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
Because as you've
It
been,
depends.
the biosphere is our
It's
circumstance.
everywhere. It's macro, yes.
Yeah.
If we look at it individually, my circumstances can seem very macro. But again, I'm not alone. If we look at the circumstances of, I don't know, if you look at South Africa as a whole country, and it's not just South Africa, the neighboring areas as well, they share a lot of commonalities in terms of circumstance. But again, they're not the same as my circumstance here in South America. See what I mean? Anyway, comments or questions?
So they're both,
circumstance?
it's both macro and micro. And then, so I'm struggling to figure out how happenings figure into this.
Okay, let's go one by one.
Sorry,
one at a
sorry,
time.
I don't mean to be, sorry.
Are we clear about circumstance? Comments, questions, or? So let's move on to
Got it.
events. Yes, sorry, Peter?
No, I got circumstances. Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, events. Events are things that happen and have a certain lasting impact on our lives or on the biosphere. For example, when our planet was hit by an asteroid in the times of the dinosaurs, that was an event. That event actually meant the extinction of the dinosaurs that have ruled the planet for about 600 million years, something like that, a phenomenal amount of time. So that was an event. throughout our life, there are plenty of events like, I don't know, people dying, those are events. This rebellion, what happened in Malaysia, one government being overthrown and a government coming in, and then corruption coming back. All those are events over time. And we have experienced plenty of events at a personal level, at a social level, at a country level, and even beyond. For instance, and I don't know, the attack on the Twin Towers, that's one event we all witnessed, and has had some impact on what happened later, you know, with Iraq, Afghanistan, and so on and so forth. I mean, ludicrous as they are, it all started with that event. Yep. Are we clear on that? Getting married is another event. I guess. Life and death are events also in our lives. And what
Are they
impact they
events or
have.
happenings? Raffers, are they events or happenings?
No, events, because they happen and they have an impact.
Yes.
Happening, actually, we're coming to that to understand the difference in what is happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's at the very, very now. For example, a happening is that we're having this conversation now. We have this conversation every week. So it's a repeated happening. If we hadn't had a couple of calls, you may call them events, but the happening is something that is repeating and it happens over a certain amount of time. For example, a happening could be, let's say, Brexit was an event. Now, that event has now plenty of happenings as people are dealing with custom issues, as people are dealing with scarcity in terms of certain kinds of labor. All those are happenings caused by an event. So you could say that, so everything that is present, current, I would call that a happening. At least that's my definition. So you can agree or disagree, but again, that's, I think, Manu, you share the same understanding, don't you? I think. Because we discussed
I think that event tend to be, I say advance, I don't know if it's the word, out of our control.
Yeah.
We take stock of. It happens.
Yes, exactly.
You know, the Twin Tower attack was an event.
Mm-hmm.
It bent our views of our world, and it shaped, you know, subsequently things.
Mm-hmm.
Happenings, it happened that I get married, you know. I'm more kind of,
You decided to get
it's more
married,
now,
yes.
you know, things that is happening, it's happening to me. I'm conscious of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great distinction. Thank you, Manu.
Yeah. And then as it's happening to me, I arrange or I rearrange.
Yes.
I can only arrange things that I'm aware of.
Yes.
So
And I create arrangements through my happenings and understanding the events and circumstances that influence happen around what I'm trying to create.
okay.
But the arrangement is
So do we see
deliberate.
how powerful these four words, the four words, as we say, are useful in terms of design? You never talk about just a word on its own. Try to see what four will mean in terms of defining a unit of account. That tetrahedron that we're talking about, something that you can now divide or you can associate, you can multiply. Is that something that we can clearly grasp here?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And also
So
inside the
if we
tetrahedra,
can, yes. So if we
and
could,
also inside the tetrahedra, you can identify at least two dualities. That's the other component. Because again, remember for Bucky, the unit is plural at a minimum of 2.
Yeah.
But when it gets to 4, then you have a structure.
Yeah.
Or yes, or a system.
and all our
actually.
discussions here about, when we talk about pollution and whatever, it's always because we took one thing, a division,
Mhm.
and we just want to from it make a word without trying to make it a little more comprehensive. And comprehensive means that 4 things at least in relation. So that's the biggest that I can get from here. So with this, we have our 16, the 4th tetraword, and we want to land the plane. So CJ, you didn't talk too much today.
Unless anybody has any more questions or comments before we close, I think.
Any more? Thank you, Rafas.
No, thank you, Manu.
I would like to know if you can specify a little bit more about arrangements, because I see that arrangements, Manu said, are only of the things that we are aware of. But what is the relation with happenings, for example?
Okay.
Do they need to happen first and then rearrange something after it happens?
Okay, let me share an example in terms of design, right? I want to go this morning, it's morning here in Cape Town. It is about 6:30 a.m. I want to go to church at 9 o'clock. All of a sudden, there's rain. I wasn't aware of, but I see that it is overcast. There's change. And we are used to that in Cape Town because we are in between the peninsula. There's the Atlantic and Indian Ocean that are not far apart. So what do? I'll change my attire. I'll get an umbrella. I'll do this and do that. That is arrangement and rearrangement of what was an order to me. You get what I'm trying to say? There is an event happening. I arrange in response to that.
Okay, so
otherwise, I'm gonna get out. If I didn't rearrange and arrange, I will get out on my way. Let's say I'm walking, on my way, I'll be caught with rain, I will be soaked.
okay, it's like something that you became aware of, so you start to find ways to rearrange your plans to do it.
No, what is happening is that let's go back to the very general principle. There is always division happening, right? There is always things happening. The universe is always in motion, continually dividing and combining. We are locally, and we are adapting to that. In this case, there is a storm coming. So if I want to achieve whatever I had to achieve, I really need to put together an anti-entropic construct to allow me to still achieve my goal. That is my design. Okay? So I rearrange not only my time, but my means and what I have in order to most safely and effectively achieve what I plan to do.
Okay. That's a lot better.
Okay.
That's a lot better. Thank you, man.
So it's just a way, that is a design. Okay?
Great.
Is it? All right. So with that, any more questions and clarification? Or can we start our descent?
Yes, before we finish, Manu, I just want to tell everybody Kelly's now out of hospital. He's now on rehab. He's going to be doing a lot of occupational therapy in order to get better and then get back home. So he can receive emails on his mobile phone. So you want to write to him, say hi, at least he can, read emails, and I'm certain he will be replying as he can while he's dealing with his various therapies. So that you're aware of. So that's again great news from Kelly. Okay, so Anna, his wife, actually asked me to share all this with the group, and we will share it as well when we send the invitation for the next course, that everybody's aware that Kelly's on the mend and is out of hospital. Okay, so with that, you can wrap it up, mate. Manu.
Okay, okay, CJ. How do you feel? What do you take away?
Thank you, Manu. Feel enlightened. And yes, the confusion is still there. So I guess that's where it creates a curiosity to want to explore further. My takeaway today is the distinction between class 1 and class 2, evolutionary trending. In a way, both have human interaction with nature, and mainly we wanted to find a way to see how to create something where we can exist and yet harmonize with what is happening out there, knowing that at this point of time, we haven't figured that out yet because of pollution. Whatever we attempt to do, pollution happens. So yeah, that's one. And the part where, Manu, you brought up a lot of words that got me thinking like, oh no, I actually don't really understand many of these words in detail. I know what it means, but when it comes to how you mentioned, how you string that up to create something for design purpose, I think I'm scratching the surface to comprehend that. I like what was mentioned in terms of circumstances, events, arrangement happening, because it does connect to me, my family, and things which I can control, things which I can't control, especially, let's say, to a certain extent, what's happening in the country, to what level of control I have, and so on and so forth. So that is my takeaway today. I'm going to pass it over to Peter. How are you feeling, and what is your takeaway for today's session?
Thanks, CJ. I think the best word I can use to describe how I'm feeling is somewhat agitated. I got a lot out of the various distinctions on the words, but I come back to Rafa's at the start of the call when he was saying how he felt, and I can't remember your exact words, Rafa's, but there was a certain despair as to some of the things in the world. And I put a quote up from Gandhi about when I despair, I remember all through history, the way of love and truth has always won. There have been tyrants and murderers who for a time they seem invincible, but in the end they always fall. Think of it always. Mahatma Gandhi. Not Muhammad Ali. But I guess I'm feeling agitated because I don't know a single person who's not somewhat aggrieved at how the world is, who doesn't want the world to be better, who's very crystal clear the world's not working for everyone. And somewhere in the course of today, there was a discussion around agreements and choice. And the distinction that was given was that agreement is macro and choice is micro. And I just have a real, I don't know the word, a real intuition that unless there's enough people who create momentum from their choices at a micro, you know, I think the world could be in for some very ugly things. And I'm encouraged because there are, whilst I said everyone is aware of something's going wrong or something's not right or things are more intense, I think there is a wave of micro choices that people aren't happy with how the world is and how people are being treated and mistreated. And maybe that's the process of perturbation and possession that will lead us to a collective agreement. And I'll just put it simply, if we had enough people in collective agreement that it's unacceptable, for example, for even one person or child to be hungry or homeless, that it's unacceptable for even one family to be bombed or affected by war, that war's unacceptable, that if we have enough momentum towards peace and prosperity for all, that we can have it. And I guess my agitation within myself is that I'm feeling, you know, there's only so many hours in the day and there's so many things you can do, but I wonder at a personal level, am I doing everything I can? And I don't think of anything else I can do to make the world a better place. But I'm very vocal about my criticisms of politics and the elite. And today was the first time I actually articulated the apathy of the general population towards that. And I don't think we can change towards a collective good until we own our shadow. And for me, it is unacceptable for a politician or a corporate leader to be unaccountable for their acts that are criminal. And you know, so I'm feeling stirred today, and in a good way, but I'm perturbating. John, in the
perfect. Thank you.
favourite city of Perth.
I'm happy to follow you because I'm feeling, I think, in many ways similar to you, if I understand you. I'd just like to offer a distinction. Their actions don't have to be criminal. As politicians, they seek election on the basis that they will supposedly make a contribution to the better running of the state, the country, that they will act in the best interests of those who elect them. I think that's often far from the reality. And I don't think their actions have to be criminal. I think they just have to be less than what we need to improve our lot and certainly to preserve the planet. If their bias, if their failure to act, many of the things they do are not criminal, but they're contributing to the problem. And it's difficult. If I'm elected by an electorate where there are coal mines and my electors tell me they want to keep their jobs as coal miners, then I'm really in a difficult situation, because if I've got the information that says that's the last thing the planet needs, do I still, or do I seek to educate my electorate? Do I seek to act in the best interests of not just those people who are coal miners, but the state, the country? It's a real issue, and I just don't think many of our politicians know enough about reality, what's happening in the world, the consequences of their action or inaction, and they're only going to act if they're prodded, if they're poked. You know, Bucky talked about being a trim tab, but I think we need something a bit more vigorous than a trim tab. My preoccupation today has been, what can I better do? How can I better agitate for change, add to the information of those in a position to make a difference, those who are making the decisions? And it is disheartening. And Anne's articulated very well. I mean, I would hate to be living in Malaysia where I think I'm living with corruption. We got rid of the corruption dam, the corruption's back. I mean, we've all got corruption around us. I don't think there's a place in the world where there isn't some level of corruption. But I think there are places where a majority of politicians or those in positions of influence, I think at the moment, I get the impression that businesses in Australia are more concerned about the future and trying harder to do more to ensure a positive future for the country than politicians, which is a little concerning. So maybe we need to be lobbying the CEOs and the boards of directors of companies. Maybe we need to be buying shares in them and saying, I'm a shareholder. But yes, I'm agitated. So that's my take on today. Before I go any further, Anne, how are you feeling? What do you take out of today?
Thank you, John. I actually feel very thankful because a lot of the comments that are made here has actually given, I've got a lot of clarity, especially the evolution 1 and 2. And also just now it's mentioned apathy, right? People being apathetic. I think the biggest issue is, the biggest danger is actually having leaders, elected leaders who are apathetic, and also corporate leaders who just don't care. So I think the only way we can counter it is like all of us coming together, and we all care a lot or too much. We do something about it. I think that's who they are, we can't control. Who we are, we can control. So we work from there. So I really thank Raffles, Peter, Julian, earlier the question that you asked, get clarity on the happenings and all that. You asked a question I didn't think of asking. It was very good. And Joe, Manu, John, CJ. It's been such a pleasure this morning. Thank you very much. Okay, over to Manu.
Julian.
How do you feel? and
Manu
what-
should go last because he's
Sorry?
been leading the concept.
Julian. Pass it to Julian.
Julian, yes.
Oh, Julian, over to you. How do you feel and what is the takeaway?
Great, thank you, Anne. And yeah, thank you for the attention. So I'm feeling, I think one word that could describe how I feel today is touched or moved by the approach that we gave today to this conversation, because at the beginning I read about evolution, the Bucky text that was shared by email. Okay, some ideas crossed my mind, but none of those ideas were like the ones that we discussed here. So I'm really pleased to hear all of the new perspectives that you have shared with me today. I also thank to Manu because the way that you use the words like making 4 groups of 4 also has helped me to at least get to understand these concepts. There are some of them in which I wasn't able to join in previous calls, but to some of them I relate. And hearing you speaking about how can we make these with all of these ideas, how can we make some bigger impact on such a big topics like the sustainability of our world, our environment, politics, on terrorist attacks, on rebellions. Okay, so we really touched such a variety of topics, and having us the possibility to discern on those. And we here are like what John said once in the call, like this is an agreement of all of us to, okay, let's see how can we make all of this knowledge useful for us and useful for the people that we can reach out. So I think that's what I carry with today, that we can this is a constant work, like this is happening. So this is something that can turn into an event that can perdure in the time. So that's great. I think that's great for us. So I'm really happy for it. So I think Joe, how have you gone?
I have not, no.
Okay.
So
Okay, Joe. So How do you feel and what do you carry away from this call?
I'm feeling good, and I'm feeling privileged this evening because something that really hit home with me. I mean, not that it hasn't been hitting home over the past few weeks, but just to, how fortunate it is to be on these calls with just the explanations of clearing up my own thoughts, and actually how Manu, actually you explained both you and Raffers how to explain circumstances, happenings, arrangements, and events, was very clear for me, and it kind of added a new dynamic as to how to think about things and how they're related to one another and how to think about things specifically, comprehensively, and to see these as groups that are interrelated. The other very important point is the how to view history. I'll just say that as a side, but the other aspect of things is choices, the importance of choices, our own personal choices, and the choices of those that are also in charge, so to speak, and that they matter no matter what, and understanding how that fits into the macro of everything overall, and how that fits into our agreements. You tend not to think that your decisions necessarily have a huge impact on things other than yourself, but they do. They have, you kind of look at it as in a very micro perspective on a regular basis. You look at things as what you can control and how it impacts you, but you really have to really consider all the time how it's going to impact everyone else around you and the rest of the world. And I do think about that always in a terms of ethics, and virtue. I do think about, but this kind of brought it home into context how it fits into the macro. So this is a different way of thinking about it for me. I've thought about it in terms of how my decisions impact the rest of the world, but this just was a different perspective. And those are my main takeaways from this evening. Manu, how do you feel? What are you taking away from this evening?
I'm really privileged to have this exchange and grateful. But the point that I have here is proven to me quite powerful to realize that only things can be counted and only things relate or interrelate. I repeat, only things can be counted and only things can relate and interrelate. And a thing is a unit of something. And we've learned in the geometry of thinking that the tetrahedron is the minimum unit of accounting. So it helps to always, in my structuring of how I communicate, to have words that I put forward, that I put together, and that can have a content, meaning that it can be expressed into something that is a thingness. That's one. The second thing is that that is always in relationship with a doer. It is always a dance. Energy in motion, according to generalized principles, is a dance. It's like a tango, is two things doing something at minimum. So the principle of duality is also absolutely important to me. And when I put them together, it started making a sense to me that I was ignorant in my circumstance, to start making the sense of that, of what is actually shaping the whole thing. And in my design then, I can start putting things in a way that makes sense of not only sustaining me in my cycle, but from the point of view of relating to the others, becoming regenerative. And that is absolutely important to me. And in the processes of doing that, and with the leverage of technology, with the leverage of communication, with the leverage of feeling, with the leverage of awareness, that if there is enough that stood up and exercised their choice to make same, there will surely be a precessive change. There will surely be something momentous that happens in terms of how we can design our environment, how it can benefit the maximum and truly everybody, right? Independently of what they look like, who they are, and how they live. So that's my biggest takeaway. And also, I want to really convey to Kelly the spirit of this group for healing. So, my friend Raffles, how do you feel? How do you wrap this thing? What do you take away? And what do you give us?
Thank you, Manu. I feel great, very grateful that, you know, people keep showing up, and despite the fact that, you know, Kelly's energy has been missing for quite a while, but we still want to keep studying, learning, and I know he's very grateful actually that these calls are still happening, because it gives him something to come back to, and also they mean a lot to him. So the best thing we can do for his recovery, I think, is keep these calls going. And again, I'm very happy that he's actually very much on the mend, living now and back with us soon. Actually, I feel invigorated today. I didn't mean to start, you know, in a sort of pessimistic view about the world today, but we all have to be aware about the fact that this is a very messy world we're living today. But people like us and what we do and what we come here together, to me, it shows me that we can actually make a difference. But I'm certain that we can, everybody in this group, having studied Bucky, will agree, we need to run Spaceship Earth in a different way. We cannot have 150 admirals, well, 156 or 7 and growing admirals, and many of them criminals, actually, managing the biosphere. It's just ridiculous. It's crazy. But again, once we get critical mass around the way we think, and I'm sure that will happen, again, we have enough people thinking this has to change, it will. Like when the Berlin Wall came down, it was just a matter of critical mass. Enough people deciding, let's knock it down. And the other people on the other side is, we cannot stop millions of people actually knocking down a wall. We might as well give up. And again, a power that has stayed steady for what, almost 50 years, crumbled overnight. And obviously, it didn't happen overnight. It took time and critical mass to happen. So I'm certain with the kind of people we have today in this call, that we can come to that utopia, well, where there will be no more countries, but just one biosphere, one species, and just people working together for the benefit of all. And again, with most people saying this, they say, this guy's totally crazy. At least I know that nobody here is going to have that sort of level of thinking going through their heads. I think it's possible. The fact that we can think it means it's possible. The fact that we study and we study the way we do, the fact that we understand that we need to get into geometric thinking, because we need stronger ideas and stronger positions, and thinking again the way Manu demonstrated today greatly. I'm very grateful for that as well, Manu. It shows that we can actually make a difference gradually, slowly but surely. we get there. Well, if we don't get there, at least we had a good go at it. So, I would leave with that thought in today's call. So again, very grateful to everybody, and hope to see you all next week. We will be working on fixing the email problem so that everybody gets the invitations and we can get the group more crowded next time, I hope. Anyway, thank you again to all. Take care. Have a good rest of the day, or a good night's sleep, whatever you are. Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye.